morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, Jill Biden and Joey have now been caught in a scandal of historic proportions. And I know many of you are going to say to the Kuhner man, we knew it, I knew it, we all knew it, but now it has come out, and I got to tell you, my friends, it makes Jill Biden and Joe Biden look even worse. Even worse. Everybody remembers that fateful debate, June 27th, 2024, on This Is CNN in Atlanta, where Joe Biden debated Donald Trump. And Biden had an epic meltdown, one never ever seen in presidential debate history. He publicly disintegrated. There's no other way to put it. And everything that we had been saying about Biden that was obvious to so much of the country, that he was suffering from serious cognitive mental decline, that he clearly was suffering from early stages of Alzheimer's, dementia. It was obvious. He's walking off and wandering into the fields. He keeps drooling. He can't answer basic questions. He can't read a speech. He forgets where he is. They call the day short for him at 2:00 in the afternoon. He could barely function for 3 or 4 hours a day. This was so obvious. And yet the Democrats, and in particular, this is what is most disturbing, his wife, Lady Macbeth, as she was called by many within Biden's inner circle, they called her Lady Macbeth. In other words, the woman scheming for power. The woman who wants power even more than her man. The woman who will do anything to prop her mentally declining vegetable of a husband up. And not only was she propping him up for 3.5 years, she pushed him to run for a second term. She wanted to prop him up for another 4 years on top of the other 3.5 years. And then it all came undone in one debate. In one debate, it was over. Biden rambled, couldn't answer the questions, at times made absolutely no sense. His eyes looking beyond that 1,000-mile stare, his mouth wide open, again, at times saliva almost dripping down his chin. The country saw what his people saw on a daily basis, up close, and what, if you were paying attention, like this great audience was, we saw again and again and again. And there was now no putting that genie back in the bottle. And so now, 2 years after that fact, in a stunning interview with CBS, an interview that I'm telling you, she and Joe Biden and the Democrats will never, ever be able to live down. Why this woman agreed to do this interview is beyond me. But it was a mistake of epic proportions. She's asked by the interviewer on that fateful debate night, what was your reaction? Listen now to Jill Biden's stunning response. Roll cut 8, Mike.
As you saw it unfold?
I wasn't horrified, I was frightened, because I had never, ever seen Joe like that before or since. Never.
Or since?
Yes.
Or You've
since.
Never seen him like that?
Never. No.
What happened?
I don't know what happened. I mean, as I watched it, I thought, oh my God, he's having a stroke. And it scared me to death.
I thought he was having a stroke? By the way, she says, I've never seen him like that. Never mind before. I'll get to that in a second. Since we've seen him in public, wandering around. We've seen him like that since. But, so she thought he was having a stroke. This is what she says now. Oh my God, I've never seen him like this. Joey's having a stroke. Now, I want to ask all of you, okay? Just leave politics out of this. Just as a human to human now, okay? I'm asking all of you. If you see, I don't care, your husband or your wife, your spouse, in a public setting, and you're like, oh my God, oh my God, she's having a stroke, or oh my God, he's having a stroke. What would you do? Honestly, what would you do? I'll tell you what I would do. I'd call 911. I'd walk up and say, come here, sweetheart, come here. No, come here. Somebody, is there a doctor? I need a doctor. I would ask for a doctor immediately. I would call 911 and I would send my Grace, in this case, my loved one, to the hospital ASAP, right? Isn't that what you would do? What I would do? What any normal spouse, any normal loving spouse would do? But no. This is what Dr. Jill, as she likes to be called, this is what Dr. Jill, this is what Lady Macbeth did. After that disastrous debate performance, she dragged Joe afterwards in front of a pro-Democrat partisan crowd. And there was Joe, his eyes like a beetle, again, lost, staring off at that 1,000-mile stare. And she looks at him like he's a 5-year-old child. Now, this is right after the debate. So according to her, she thought her husband was having a stroke on stage. And you remember? Joe, you did great. You answered all the questions, Joe. This is what she did after she says she thought her husband was having a stroke. Roll cut 8, Mike.
Oh, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, I'm telling you right now, this woman is a monster. We'll get to Joe Biden in a second, but I'm just telling you, this woman, this is his wife? No wonder his staff called her Lady Macbeth. This woman is sick. She's sick. This is your wife? It was elder abuse. I'm telling you, it was elder abuse. And what is now clear, crystal clear, because now all the former top aides are speaking out. One of the biggest former top aides who worked with Biden every day said that what you saw on that stage was not, in fact, come out and said, she's lying. Lying. He goes, stone cold lying. We witness this every single day. What you saw, America, that night on CNN, we watched every day when we were with him. He rambled. He lost his train of thought. He never made sense. He kept looking around. He was confused. He forgot the basics. Basically, he could only function between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. We had a very narrow window to do anything with him. And that Jill Biden was often there. So she saw it. We saw it. She's lying. And then other aides are now speaking out. Here's another one. This is Alex Thompson, a close aide on Jill Biden, saying that she thought she had a stroke, that he had a stroke in that infamous CNN debate. Mike, how much time left? Okay, we'll play it on the other side. Because even now, they're publicly calling her out as a liar. Now, let me just ask all of you. What she did wasn't just abusive, wasn't just abusive to her husband. It's not just elder abuse. And cold and callous and manipulative. But it was a crime against the American people. She doesn't realize what she has just admitted to was a crime against the American people. Because just like Woodrow Wilson's wife, Edith Wilson, kept Woodrow Wilson's bad health from the American people while he was bedridden and couldn't function, and she ran the government in secret, it was really Jill Biden that was running our government. Now, with this stunning statement by Jill Biden, which has gone everywhere, and I mean everywhere, should she be arrested for elder abuse? No, in all seriousness, should she be arrested for elder abuse? Because I think the answer is clearly yes. Now, it's not just that she's been lying and she was the one that was really, her and Obama, obviously, were the two key figures behind this colossal cover-up of Joe's dementia and his clear cognitive, mental, and physical decline. But she was in many ways the most active enforcer and participant in this cover-up. To the extent now that it's all coming out. You have aide after aide after aide, hence her nickname, Lady Macbeth, who are saying, she's a liar. What you saw on that debate stage, she's acting now. Oh, I thought, I was frightened. I thought Joe was having a stroke. I've never seen him like this before or since. And you could tell, even that hack CBS reporter was like, you mean, and since? Like really? Like you're going to stick with this story? Yeah, and since? I've never seen him like this. Well, they're coming out and saying he was always like this. And she was there with us in every meeting practically. And she was the one that managed him. When to get up, when to go to bed, when to call a lid so he wouldn't deal with reporters or stop his workday at 2 or 2:30 or 1:30 or sometimes even at noon. I mean, she was the one that masterminded the entire cover-up. By the way, with the full complicity of the entire White House press corps. They were giving him questions in advance so that they would have the answers prepared for him. All he had to do was read off the teleprompter, and even then, if you remember, he couldn't read properly off the teleprompter. So they all knew, and they all conspired. Listen now to Alex Thompson, a former top Biden aide, about now Jill's claim that she thought Joe Biden was having a stroke during that disastrous debate on CNN. Roll cut, he's on CNN. This is Alex Thompson, basically saying she's a liar. Roll cut 9, Mike.
Well, she says that she's never seen him act that way before or since, but in the interviews that, over 200 of which that Jake and I did, other people did see him act like that in the months before and in the months after that. And those moments became increasingly hard to predict. And the White House was increasingly trying to manage them to keep those moments out of public view. And eventually, during the debate, they could no longer hide those moments from the public. I'd also say that what she just said there is very much at odds with what many of Biden's top aides said at the time and have said, since the 2024 election, which is they didn't think the debate was that bad. And they thought the Democratic Party way overreacted. They certainly didn't think that he was having a stroke at the time.
My bad. That was a different cut I was thinking about. This is Alex Thompson, my bad, the co-author of a book on Joe Biden with Jake Tapper. Forgive me. And so he's a journalist on CNN, and he's basically saying, look, I spoke to many Biden aides, top aides, and they said, no, he was like this all the time. You just heard him. No, that's how he was. No, she knew. She knew the whole time. And by the way, for Joe Biden, I just want you to go back and look at that again, okay, if you can. If you have time this weekend, just go back to the debate. Just watch 10, 15 minutes of it. And it's more striking even now, even more than at the time. How out of it he is. I mean, what a mental vegetable he's become, right, in that debate. And his staff, because they've been with him in that state of mind for so many years, they actually thought he did okay. Like, by his standards. No, I mean, sometimes he just shuts down completely. No, he was, stuff was coming out of his mouth. He seemed semi-coherent at times. He seemed to kind of know where he was at times. So they were like, we could have done worse. That literally was, no, we could have done much worse. No one said his guy's getting a stroke or a heart attack. No one said, "Oh, this is so uncharacteristic. I don't know this guy that we just saw on stage right now publicly disintegrate." Now, I want to make a couple more points, and then I want to go to you, the great audience of Kuhner Country. 617-266-6868 is the number. Number one, if you believe your husband is having a stroke, why would you not, as I said in my opening monologue, but it bears repeating, and you didn't call for a doctor? No? You didn't say he's got to go to the hospital right away? The fact that she's dragging him out in front of another event? You answered all the questions, Joe. And he's smiling, but you could tell he's half confused with his eyes, like I said, like a beetle wide open. He can, and whatever. I want to know what they shot him up with. Because his eyes often, he never blinked. He would do these public events or give speeches, and we would often talk about it on the show. The guy never blinks. His eyes are just like I said, like a beetle. They're just like, and it goes on for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And then they just drag him off that stage. So I want to know what they shot him up with. Did she commit elder abuse? I say there's no question. Okay, this is actually Sandy. This is straight from Sandy, who normally doesn't weigh in on a text to me, but she feels so strongly about this. Jeff, Jill Biden is so out of touch, she doesn't even realize how cold and grasping she appears. Bingo. Bingo. That, I think, that's what I mean. It's so shocking on so many levels. But the way, to come out and A, fabricate this lie, and then B, to be seen as so obviously cold and so indifferent to the health and well-being of your husband, and clearly because she was the schemer. She was the one, even more than him, to be fair, who really wanted that power, who loved being first lady, who loved all the perks, all the privileges. I think she got off running things behind the scenes. In many ways, she saw herself as the first female president, de facto first female president, because the staff would have to go to her and not Joe, because she really was the power behind the throne. She was Lady Macbeth. That's what she was. So I want to ask all of you, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Jill Biden's priorities during the 2024 Biden-Trump debate were A, protecting her husband's health, B, staying in the White House. What do you think Dr. Jill Biden's priorities were during that infamous 2024 Biden-Trump televised debate on CNN? Was it A, protecting her husband's health, B, staying in the White House? You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Lou in Rhode Island, you're going to kick us off, Lou. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Yeah, how you doing, Jeff?
Hi,
Look,
Lou.
Jill was at the center of probably the biggest con job that has ever taken place in American history. I want to go back because you were there. You went to the New Hampshire and interviewed people, went and saw the New Hampshire debates. Even from the get-go, we all knew that there was something wrong with this guy, right? Absolutely knew there's something wrong with Biden. There was something off about him. He was suffered since he left office. He suffered some kind of dementia or something, and he was off. But the thing is, and Jill was pushing him, but it takes a village, like as Hillary says, it takes a village, to raise a child. Well, it took an entire media network, the village of the Democratic Party, plus the media, plus Rhino Republicans to push this guy over the top and create a con job that lasted 4 years and was basically run by an auto pen, Jill Biden, and Obama, and basically what I call the new communist front that has led to today's new communists. And Jill is, yes, absolutely at the center of it. I mean, the fact is that you're right. If she thought he was having a stroke, immediately after the debate, you take him right to the hospital, right? I mean, that's the most sensible thing. Have him checked by a doctor or get him over, to wherever the closest place that he can to get a neuro exam. But they didn't do that. What they did is that they decided to keep going for a little while and run him for 4 years, another 4 years, because they thought they could keep up the con. And the con has been to the detriment of America. I mean, for the 4 years of Biden was terrible. I mean, first of all, they used Trump as a scapegoat, creating all these fake crimes and everything. They rigged the election in 2020 to get him in, and even right up to the debate, wasn't there people in the media saying, "Oh, Biden, he's sharp as a tack. Whenever we're with him, he's like right on. He's the smartest guy in the room." They were still pulling the con right there, right up until the debate happened, and the whole country saw what was going on. Absolutely, Jill was at the center. She and the auto pen were running the country, and look, to our detriment, we fell for this crap, and to our detriment. But it wasn't just Jill; it was the whole media apparatus, the Democratic Party, and even Republicans like George W. Bush, who patted Clyburn on the back for getting Biden elected, and you go back to those debates, and you go back to those in 2020. He lost in New Hampshire, and then they reinvented him and didn't want Bernie in there, and he comes back in South Carolina and doubles the vote over Bernie, and it was just the biggest con job in history. Yeah, and Jill was at the center of it, and Biden was like a puppet. And I thought, actually, there were times I actually felt sorry for him because he was so out of it the whole time. And I think he talked about it. All the talk show hosts talked about it constantly. His gaps, his wandering around. He didn't in Normandy. Didn't he wander around all over the place?
He wandered around. I got to say, but it got to a certain point. I mean, look, I couldn't stand the guy. I really, really couldn't stand him because of the destruction that he was wreaking on the country. But there was a part of me, he's still a human being. He's still a husband. He's still a father. He's still a grandfather. And I look at him and I'm like, does anybody in that family love him? Does anybody in that family have any kind of basic decency? Who would do that to a father or a grandfather or a husband? And, he's shaking air. He's turning around. He's shaking hands. There's literally nobody there. Look, this was early on. You want to mention 2020. This was him in South Carolina. So he's just got destroyed in Iowa, got beaten in New Hampshire by Bernie. It looks like Bernie's going to win the nomination. And the grand poobahs of the Democratic Party realize, they look at the polling, Trump will beat Bernie because Bernie's just a flaming crazy socialist and the country does not want socialism. So they've got to get Bernie out. So they decide they're going to put all their money behind Biden. So now he's in South Carolina and he's got Clyburn's endorsement. And at a big dinner, a big fundraising dinner, I think it was like $1,000 a plate. So there you are. These are all the Democrat heavy hitters. And Biden is giving a speech. And in the middle of the speech, he starts talking about Beau. And how if you don't want to vote for him, vote for Beau. And everyone's looking at each other like, Beau's been dead. Beau's been dead for years. And Biden's going on about how much he loves Beau. And how Beau is going to be this great attorney general for Delaware. And the media covered it up. They covered it up. The guy was so freaking gone. This is 2020. And this guy was so freaking gone that this guy was going around telling people his dead son is alive. And he would make jokes like, you know, vote for two Bidens. Like, vote for me and vote for Beau. And they still voted for him. And I think that was almost the appeal. I think the appeal was they wanted a puppet. Because then they could completely control him. And that was what Obama wanted. He wanted a full third term with no resistance. So he's like, this is the perfect guy. It's me behind the scenes, and I just got him on a string. And I think I'm going to be very honest with all of you. I think there was also a racial animus there. Barack Obama had a thing against whites, Europeans, Westerners. He just did. And he would love to, when Biden was vice president, he would mock Biden to his face. Always make fun of him to his face. He almost got a perverse, sick pleasure out of making fun of him. I think the fact that he could take this white guy and just humiliate him and humiliate him and humiliate him, he got some kind of a sick, perverse pleasure out of it. But whatever it was, he was the perfect puppet for Obama to ram through his third term. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 617. And honestly, I think it hits the nail right on the head. Jeff, Jill Biden loved everything that came along with being the first lady. Her behavior tells you everything you need to know about her. She loves herself more than she loves America. No question. Quintessential narcissist. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. 617-266-6868. And you want to just see what a liar she is. Lines are jammed. I promise I'm going to go to the phones. Let me just play this cut. This is what an incorrigible, pathological liar this woman is. Again, she's on with CBS, and the reporter asks, well, did you ever see any signs that there was cognitive decline in Joe? Listen to Jill Biden's answer. Roll cut one. Mike.
Ever see signs that he was falling into cognitive decline?
No.
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 Truly.
No.
I mean, people were saying he wasn't the same Joe Biden.
Well, I don't think that's true. He was the essence of the same Joe Biden. But, yeah, he was slowing down. He was getting older. I mean, we all observed that. When it's a very intense job. I think it ages you quickly.
Yeah, no. You never saw any signs of cognitive decline? No. Even the hack reporter. Truly? I mean, you're going to give me this it's such obvious bull, you know what? It's such bull crap. It's such obvious Bravo Sierra. Like, come on. In other words, be smart about it. Say, yeah, a little here, a little there, but I believed in Joe, and Joe is Joe, and no, this like I don't know, no. I mean, sure, you slow down a little bit, but boy, it's the job. The job, it just ages you. The question I have, why now? Why? Why is she spinning this lie? Why? Why now, almost 2 years out, he was humiliated on stage. He didn't want to resign. She refused to have him resign, even if he wanted to resign, although she claims that she thought he had a stroke. Well, then why don't you just say, Joe, you got to resign? I mean, come on, your health. No. They didn't want him to resign. They fought to the bitter end. It took a month for the Democrats to push him out and install Kamala, and the Bidens bitterly resented it, led by Jill and Hunter Biden. And so my question to you is, why is she coming out with this, I thought he had a stroke narrative, this obviously a lie, and why now? Mike's theory, we were talking about this off air, is it's a well-known secret. Joe Biden can't make any money on the lecture circuit. Presidents, now it's a big thing. You pimp out the White House. And so you charge $1 million a speech or whatever, and you can rack up tens and even hundreds of millions of dollars just giving speeches. The problem is nobody is hiring Joe Biden. Nobody wants to hear from him. So they're desperate. Literally, they're desperate for money. Hunter Biden is now broke, completely bankrupt, kaput. It all went up his nose and into the pockets of Russian hookers. And for some strange reason, nobody's buying his artwork anymore. Okay, isn't that amazing? And nobody wants him on energy boards. The Burismas of the world. I don't know what this is. It's incredible. Suddenly, they don't want his expertise. Can you believe that, huh? So, Hunter Biden desperately needs money. They have no money coming in. Nobody wants to give Joe Biden a speaking fee, so they don't know how to generate cash. And Mike's point is she's got to rehabilitate him. And the way she's trying to rehabilitate him is, no, he never had dementia. No, it was just a one-off. No, hey, Joe is still all up there. He's got all his marbles. Come on. Give him his $1 million speaking fee. We got some money to make here. We got to take care of Hunter. We got to take care of me. We got to take care of Joey, our lavish lifestyle. So he thinks it's really a large con to try to make people believe that Joe Biden is still fine and that Joe Biden deserves to get the kind of speaking fees, let's say Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, et cetera, the kind of fees they were making, the kind of money they were hauling in. Agree, disagree, why now? And why does she have to claim that she thought he had a stroke? I mean, is she really that stupid? David in Brookline. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, David.
When I heard this, I only thought about when I was remembering my little nephew when he was maybe 2.5, and his mother said, "Yes, Bobby, you used the potty, you made a wee-wee." When I heard Jill Biden say, "You answered all the questions," that's what I thought of. You either laugh or you cry. It was humiliating. She humiliated him, and everybody saw it. However, Jeff, unlike you, I don't, as a human being, yes, you feel badly for him, but I have no remorse for this. I feel no sadness for this guy. I think that if you recall all the different innuendos about him, whether he with his the Senate page, or if I'm not mistaken, even his current wife Jill, I think she was the nanny and he had an affair with her. I mean, this guy is not a good person. And the other point the two other points I wanted to make, I think it was Senator Kennedy that said, I don't remember who he said it to, Jeff, but Joe Biden was the dumbest senator, the dumbest senator there. And so he was never that bright to start with. But at the end of the day, I want to remember something humorous. And of course, that comes from President Trump. Do you remember on stage when he said, it's just the facial expressions? And I think this is part of what the liberals hate about President Trump. I don't know what I really don't understand what he just said, and I don't think he does either. I mean, classic. It was.
Oh, he destroyed him. No, I'll never forget that, because it's true. Biden was rambling. He didn't make any sense, and you could tell even on Jake Tapper's face. He was like, "Oh my!" Like Tapper was stunned. The whole CNN panel, they're like, "Oh, like we knew about this in private, but." He's melting down in public. They didn't give him his proper drugs. The cocktail, whatever the cocktail was, it's not working. So you can tell they were, what are we going to do? And Trump just looked with this sneering dismissiveness and saying look, I've been telling you this guy's a vegetable for 3.5 years. And, that look on his face. And he says, I don't understand a word this guy said, and I don't think he did either. And the other thing, the line he said was, look, Jake, with all due respect, he shouldn't even be up here on the stage. Like that he's so gone that he needs to be in, an assisted living facility. Like he's looking around we're talking about the United States of America. A, this man can't be our president, and B, you want to run him again for another 4 years? Like, have all of you lost your minds? So I agree with you. David, I want to ask you this. Jill Biden now, obviously, she's on a book tour. Okay? She's trying to sell books. Is this going to help her sell books? Is this going to help her make money? Because they're desperate. They're running out of money. They're desperate for money. When, now she's going on about, I thought he had a stroke. Trying to generate almost sympathy for him. Is this going to help them? Is this going to help with the book sales? Is this going to help them sell books? And is this going to help generate more understanding, more sympathy, more empathy for her and for Joe? Or is this going to blow up in their face? What say you, David?
I can answer that real quickly, but just to add to what you said, do you remember Joe's response? He almost he remembered a line they gave him. By the way, I'll challenge you to a golf match if you can. And President Trump's facial expression. But think about it, Jeff, how almost in a classy and funny way that President Trump could have humiliated him worse. He just smiled. No, I do not. It was awful. You either laugh or you cry, Jeff. It's just awful. I mean, Trump happens to be a good golfer, and you remember Trump with the beach chair scenario. He would stand up on the rallies and say, who told Joe it was a good idea to lift up a 2-ounce beach chair? He couldn't make it. So I think I'm answering your question. There is a certain segment of this population, Jeff, that will buy anything, but a very small segment. I don't think it's going to help mass book sales. I don't think she's a sympathetic character. Why she's doing it? Yeah, it's probably money. Maybe somewhere deep down they're worried about the auto pen pardons being turned over. Because partly I thought that's why she, aside from being power hungry and loving the trappings, I think they were worried about what happens if they don't stay in power and they don't get those pardons. I think ultimately they all know that they committed, many different crimes.
Oh, you nailed it. Oh, David, as usual, you nailed it. David, thank you very much for that call. I think part of it is money, no question. And by the way, how do you blow through hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars? I just don't. I mean, Hunter, how much cocaine did that guy do? Seriously, how many Russian hookers can you sleep with? But anyway, so he blew through all the money. Jill blew through all the money. Frankie, the brothers, they all blew through all the money. And anyway, so they need money. And I'm thinking, what the hell did you guys do with all the money? And I think the other one is they committed crimes. They know they committed crimes. Hunter committed crimes. Joe committed crimes. Jill Biden now definitely committed crimes. She covered up the fact that the president of the United States was physically and mentally impaired. And I'm telling you, she should go to jail for just simple elderly abuse. She should go to jail. What they did to him, I'm telling you, qualifies as elderly abuse. So they need to go to prison, and now they're trying to cover their tracks by creating another fake narrative and fake story. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Andy in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Andy?
I'm great. Hey, listen, I think what you said about, watching the clip of what happened this weekend was a good thing to do. And I think they should make like the Three Stooges weekend marathon. They should have it for, the Biden clips that all the stupid things that he's done. And it would just make a great little weekend show, So I just can't believe that, she wants to be in the limelight. Obviously, wants to be noticed and seen, and they love that power. They love that power trip, So it's a sad disease that he has, and for them to cover it up, it's just too bad.
Andy, I'm not trying to be holier than thou. I'm just piggybacking off of what you're saying, Andy, because I think you're completely right. And I'm not trying to come across as holier than thou. But look, to me, this is just normal. What any normal, decent person would do. I know that 99.9% of this audience would do it. My sister-in-law visited us a couple of weeks ago. Long story short, she had a very mild stroke about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So we're just always a little worried about her heart. Anyway, long story short, she wakes up in the middle of the night. We have a guest room above us. And she says that she feels tremendous pain in her chest. And she's very cold, like shaking like a leaf. Cold, 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 cold. So right away we think, oh my God, is Anne-Marie having a heart attack? We called 911 immediately. Immediately. We thought stroke, forgive me, that she's having a stroke. So we called 911. I'm talking within 4 seconds. And we're comforting her. And I'm putting a blanket on her. And Grace is there rubbing her hand. Her daughter, my niece, was there caressing her hair, saying, Mom, it's going to be okay. Just stay calm. Just stay calm. Just stay calm. And she's like, oh, my God, I can't breathe. She's saying it's her chest is so tight and she's so cold. And the poor woman's panicking because she's thinking, oh, my God, I'm having another stroke. And how bad is it going to be? And we're there just trying to comfort her, and we're like, come on, where are these guys? Where are these guys? They came within minutes. But when when you got a family member who's in trouble, minutes seems like, days. Anyway, they finally arrived. We followed her right to the hospital. They put her in the ambulance. We went right with her to the hospital. Anyway, thank the Lord, it was not a stroke or a heart attack. Okay, it was one of these vicious spasms, which, by the way, I had once in my life. They hurt like the devil. And you think you're having a heart attack. You're convinced it's a heart attack, but actually it's not. Anyway, so it was just a really bad spasm. My point being, would I take her and then put her in front of a group of people and shoot her up with something and say, Anne-Marie, you did great. You answered all the questions. And then go around with a leash around her and take her around and pretend that she's fine and everything is good and there's not a thing to worry about. And come on, we got to keep making more money off of Anne-Marie. We got to sell more books with Anne-Marie. We got to make sure everybody thinks Anne-Marie is fine. Now, she's not even my wife. She's my sister-in-law. I mean, I love her, don't get me wrong, but it's not even my spouse. And my God, it was unquestioned. I couldn't imagine doing that. She's a human being, for God's sake. That this woman comes out and says, I thought he was having a stroke. And not only does she do nothing, after the debate, she takes him in front of a focus group, in front of a big crowd, and tries to spin that he won the debate. And they're pushing him out to do interview after interview to make it seem like it was a success when it was an obvious failure. Andy, I got to ask you, is this woman right in the head? I mean, even now, we're going to sympathize with her? So you thought your husband had a stroke, and it never occurred to you, maybe let's call an ambulance? It never occurred to you, let's call 911? Andy, what say you?
I say you call 911. Okay, that's the biggest thing. What happened with my dad was his slipper fell off of his foot, and his mouth began to droop on one side. There was something wrong. Obviously, something was wrong, and his speech was a little off. We called 911 right away. That was it. You get help right away. If you think someone's having a stroke or something's wrong, you get help right away. And it's too bad because she is so conceited and just self-centered. She's thinking about her time in the limelight, and it's really too bad. My other point was Alzheimer's is a bad thing. It's terrible. We see people aging. They start to lose their ability to drive. We have to take their car keys away. We see that they can't be in their house anymore, and they need assistance. So my thought is, why not, like Richard Branson, why not buy an island? Like Richard Branson conducts his business from a hammock, basically, suntanned up, loving life, very wealthy man. Why not buy an island and basically let people with Alzheimer's turn in their car keys, go to this island, enjoy life, have a drink, mess your pants, whatever happens, it's okay. Let it happen. So I'm going to buy an island, Jeff.
Andy, thank you very, very much for that call. No, you should take care, like, say, in Joe Biden's case, you take care of your husband, you take care of your father, say you're Hunter or whatever, and, you give him dignity and privacy. That's how you treat people who are suffering from Alzheimer's or any kind of mental decline. Instead, look, even now, they're using him even now. Again, he's a cash cow. Let's sell a book. On his back, let's sell a book. Even now, they got to make money off of him. I mean, these people are really disgusting. 617-266-6868. Kim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kim, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. This guy was a monster, and I just, like, you reap what you sow. Like, you remember when he said about the soldiers coming home from the Middle East wars, that they didn't, they volunteered to go. Why do we have to fix them up when they come home?
Yes.
Like, it just karma, you know.
Well, remember the fallen 13 in Afghanistan, and when they came back to Dover, and he was the one directly responsible for their deaths. The way we pulled out of Afghanistan, and then as we were pulling out, they knew this. They saw the suicide bomber, and they were asking our snipers were asking for permission to take the sniper out at Abbey Gate, and they refused to give permission, and 13 of our Marines were blown up and killed. So they come back to Dover, and that SOB is staring at his watch. George in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
George. Hey, Jeff. Thank you for taking the call. I guess what's so upsetting about the whole Dementia Joe era, to me, is that it's been a lie from the get-go. I mean, it's been very obvious that, this person shouldn't even have a driver's license. And it's just the press and the people around him. Basically, I mean, Jill is just as guilty as everybody, in my opinion. She just perpetuated a lie. If you were an aide and you worked for someone like that, you would say, I don't dislike Biden as a person. I mean, I don't like some of the things he's done, of course, like most people, but I mean, he's just not qualified to be, president. And it's just what's alarming to me is that no one came forward and just said, hey, look, it's been an embarrassment for 4 years, and they're going to try to do another 4 more years of this, sick person that it's obvious. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that I'm more upset with the press and people around him, and now it seems to me like the press is just trying to clog the leak that they allowed to happen. And
you're dead on. Look, George, what the media did during the almost 4 years, whatever, 3.5 years, whatever it was, under the Biden regime, was to me absolutely unforgivable. They should never be trusted again. They've lost all moral authority, all credibility. They're a bunch of liars. And what they did was they aided and abetted the greatest political crime in American history. This was the worst. What they did was they covered up a stolen election to install a mentally declining, clearly physically declining, cognitively impaired puppet in the White House who was not fit to be president of the United States, not even close. And his aides covered it up. The entire Democratic Party covered it up. His wife and family, they didn't just cover it up, they profited from it. They used him to line their pockets and his to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And the media knew all of this. Everybody knew what Hunter Biden was doing on Burisma, that he was selling our country out to the Ukrainians. That's why Joe Biden gave him hundreds of billions of dollars of our weapons and our financial aid. It was obvious. They had Joe Biden by the tonsils because they had bought his family lock, stock, and barrel. And it was whatever, 20 million, 25 million. That's all it took to buy the Bidens. And Joe Biden sold himself to China for about $2 billion. So, and Jill Biden enjoyed all of that every step of the way. So what we had is a Manchurian candidate. I'm choosing my words very carefully. And he was an agent of China. He was an agent of Ukraine. He was an agent of foreign powers and foreign interests. But above all, he was an agent of the globalists and led by Barack Hussein Obama. And their goal was to destroy America. And, I remember saying this during Biden's presidency, and I challenged the left, and they were never able to take up my challenge because they knew I was right. If you planned and wanted to destroy the United States of America, if you and I sat around the table and we said, okay, look, you want to destroy America, how would you do it? And you give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is the difference between your plan and what Joe Biden is doing? And there's no difference. He deliberately was destroying this country piece by piece by piece by piece. And to keep all of this concealed, they lied. And and George, I'll give you the final word, I promise. What amazed me during the Biden years is that even with their best efforts to cover it up, he only works 3-4 hours a day. 60% of his time is in Rehoboth Beach. 60%. So he's basically always on the beach. Everything was scripted. Everything was packaged. They gave the questions, the media gave them the questions beforehand. They gave the answers to Joe Biden. So when you had the one press conference a year, they get up, they know that he already knows the question. So they're completely colluding with him. And the answer has already been given to them in advance. And the idiot still couldn't read off the screen, the teleprompter. So even with all of this control and manipulation and all of these people coordinating, colluding in this cover-up, we could still see with our own eyes, if you weren't willfully blind, you got a vegetable in the White House. This man should not be president. And after all of that, even after the disaster of June 27th on that debate stage on CNN, they still wanted him to run for another 4 years. That shows you the level of contempt that they have for us. And George, I'll never forget the Bills in Sudbury, the Chris's in Gloucester, the Bens in North Andover. They would call in. He's sharp as a whip. He's fit as a fiddle. This is insulting to him. We're discriminating against the elderly. Okay, my friends, what was the purpose of the Biden presidency? In other words, why were they covering up his clear cognitive, mental, physical deterioration and decline? And yes, it was to put through or implement Obama's third term. And really, what did Obama want? He wanted the socialist transformation of America. And had Donald Trump not won in November 2024, they would have achieved their dream of a socialist America. And it was Trump and MAGA that blocked them and defeated them at the last possible hour. But it gave birth to a new wave of socialism in the United States. There is no question the Biden presidency, which was really Obama's third term, will go down in history as having spawned a new socialism, even a new Islamo-communism here in America. And you saw it with the rise of Bernie Sanders, the rise of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the rise of Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, the so-called squad, but you also now see it in the rise of Zoran Mamdani. He is now the poster boy for this new aggressive third world style socialism that Joe Biden and Barack Obama have now interjected and spawned here in America. And what happened this week was that New York City, and we warned this was going to happen, has now crossed the socialist Marxist Rubicon. Zoran Mamdani has now announced a new policy in New York City which will affect all 5 boroughs, which, by the way, is becoming the template for socialists now all across the United States. So if you're living in Boston, it's coming. Chicago, it's coming. Los Angeles, it's coming. Seattle, it's coming. Okay, it's coming. It's coming to a city or a town near you, especially if you live in a blue state or in a blue city. Mamdani now says it is time to seize and confiscate private property and to then redistribute it to either the government or to the tenants. And in particular, Mamdani now says that his administration is going to go after, quote unquote, bad landlords. Landlords that he says are, quote unquote, negligent, or that have buildings that he believes are not beautiful enough or well maintained enough, and under the guise of lack of proper maintenance, or under the guise of supposed bad management, or under the guise of supposedly negligence, he now says they are going to come in, seize these buildings, seize them, confiscate them, and then give them over to either far left-wing non-governmental organizations, by the way, all of whom are tied to Mamdani, all of whom support Mamdani, most of whom are Mamdani cronies, or to very corrupt community land trusts who also have ties to Mamdani, or to the tenants themselves. In other words, if you've seen the movie Dr. Zhivago, Dr. Zhivago is now going to meet New York. Whether you're in Queens, in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, in Staten Island, in Manhattan, what he now wants to do is, and in the movie, the Bolsheviks take over, and then they take over his home, and before you know it, there are strangers living in every single room. And after a while, because there are strangers living in every single room, the house becomes completely decrepit, it falls apart, and it becomes essentially a slum. And that's what Mamdani now plans to do here in New York. Now, the key is this. What is a bad building? What constitutes neglect, according to Mamdani? What constitutes, quote-unquote, poor or bad management? Well, let me tell you a quick story. When my wonderful grandfather spent half of the Second World War in a Nazi concentration camp, this was in what is today Croatia, and he came back from the war and the camp, and he barely survived. My grandmother had to take care of the home. She and her young children. And they did the best they could. They milked the cows. They tried to feed the horse. We had a little bit of a beehive, and they tried to make honey out of that. But they weren't able to make the repairs on the house that would have kept it in absolutely top shape. Why? Because her husband and the young children's father was in a camp. And so what did the communists do when they seized power? They said, you know what? We don't like the way your house looks. We don't like the way you're running your property. We think you're being, quote unquote, neglectful. We're seizing it and we're taking it. And then we're going to redistribute it to our friends and our cronies. All in the name of fighting capitalism. All in the name of fighting capitalism. All in the name of the worker and the poor and the downtrodden. And so this family farm that had been in the Kuhner name for 800 years was gone. They took his home. They took his cow. They took his chickens. They took his horse. They took his little, he was making honey. He had a little shack where he made honey. They took everything. Everything. And my grandfather desperately had to leave, or else they would have put him back in a concentration camp and he would be dead. Now, long story short, my family endured and suffered what Dr. Zhivago depicts in the movie and then, of course, in the film. Land confiscation, land expropriation, and then the redistribution of private property, something you've worked on your whole life, and some cases for generations, to people who never earned it, people who have no right to it, all in the name of quote-unquote social justice. And it wasn't just done in what was then Yugoslavia, what is today Croatia. It was done in Russia. It was done in China. It was done in Cambodia. It has been done over and over again. And from Stalin to Mao to Pol Pot, every time you have confiscated people's homes, buildings, and land, and in the name of redistribution, it has led to misery, poverty, and eventually terror. Because to have that kind of economic control, which is what they crave, remember, they talk social justice, but the lives of ordinary people only get poorer and worse under socialism. Never better. What they really crave is power. Mamdani wants power. The more power, the better. And to have economic power, you need social power. To have economic control, you need social control. And that's why inevitably socialism, communism, Marxism leads to one-party rule, secret police, censorship, and eventually imprisonment and torture and, God forbid, murder. That's the road now that New York City is on. And so this clown is now telling landlords across New York City, be careful, I'm coming for you. And they are going to go, his words, not mine, block by block, block by block. And they now plan to seize building after building, apartments after apartments from hardworking landlords. By the way, many of whom, contrary to the myths in the media, are not greedy landlords or wealthy landlords. Many of them are middle-income, middle-class people who are barely struggling to make ends meet. And he is going to take their buildings, their land, their property, seize it, confiscate it, and then hand it over to his cronies. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, communism now is coming to New York City. Listen now to Zohran Mamdani, self-avowed socialist, Islamist, supporter of Hamas. Now he's saying we're coming for the bad landlords. And by the way, who gets to define who's a bad landlord? Who gets to define the word bad? Who's the bad landlord, according to Mamdani? Listen now to the mayor of New York saying we're going to take your buildings, we're going to seize them, we're going to confiscate them, and then we're going to redistribute them. Roll cut 20, Mike.
Through our new citywide campaign, Fix the City, we will focus on the worst landlords in New York City. When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers. And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards. Stewards that include community land trusts, nonprofits, or even the tenants themselves.
Now, that was in front of a mob. That was a socialist mob, the Democratic Socialists of America. And they have found their champion in Zohran. There's no question about it. Now, what people don't know about Mamdani, born in Uganda, a very devout Muslim, he's a champagne socialist. His mother is fabulously wealthy. He comes from a very rich family. He is the child of privilege. He was born with the proverbial silver spoon in his mouth. He has no real-world experience. In fact, this guy was given nothing but a left-wing, frankly, Marxist education. He knows nothing about the realities of what really happened in the Soviet Union, in Mao's China, in Pol Pot, Cambodia, Castro's Cuba. Every time this has been tried, every time, it has been an absolute disaster. A disaster. Now, either he knows and he doesn't care, or he's so ignorant and his mind is so marinated in communist orthodoxy, he doesn't care. Or doesn't know. He's so ignorant. Whatever it is, whether it's ignorance or callousness, it really doesn't matter now at this point. The policies now are going to be absolutely destructive. And so here is now exactly their plan of attack. What they're going to do is they've unleashed, there's a woman by the name of Sia Weaver, C-E-A. Her last name is Weaver, Weaver. This woman should send chills down the spine of not only every New Yorker, but of every American. Like Mamdani, she is a trust fund communist. She's a self-avowed communist. He has appointed her to be the top person for dealing with tenants in the city of New York. So she's really now going to be the point person to implement this confiscation, land seizure, and building seizure plan. This is what she said recently. Quote, "Private property is theft. The goal of our movement is to seize all private property. And that in the end, according to her, home ownership is a tool of white supremacy." By the way, she's white, but let that go. So she's one of these college-educated, self-hating, I wouldn't even call her a white liberal, a white communist/Marxist, who believes if you want to tear down the white supremacy capitalist system in America, you have to go after the landlords and you have to start seizing the property. And she says this openly. We must seize the land of all homeowners, especially quote-unquote white homeowners, and then redistribute this to our supporters and to minorities. In other words, they're going to drive all white people out of New York. That's their ultimate aim, but especially all white property owners and all white landlords and white building owners. And they want to hand everything over either to the city or to these nonprofits. That's why he kept saying nonprofits, and they're laughing, because those are Mamdani's friends and cronies. So basically, they're going to be stealing property and then giving it to their friends and buddies. And you're going to say, well, Jeff, how the hell can they just steal someone's property? It goes against the rule of law. That's where C.O. Weaver comes in. What they're going to do is they're going to go property by property, and they're going to say, that's a violation. That's a violation. Oh, no, that's another code violation. And so they're going to force property owners and building owners, landlords, to pay hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. They're also going to impose rent control already on rent-stabilized buildings. They know that these landlords are already losing money. They're losing money on these homes because they can't put up the rent. But they still have to pay the mortgage. They still have to pay all kinds of costs. They still have to do repairs. So they're already losing money. Now they're going to be hit with hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines and violations. And eventually their goal is to bankrupt them. And then the city's going to come, that's their strategy, and say, well, we'll take it off your hands. We'll take it off you. No problem. Give it to us for pennies on the dollar. Or not even pennies on the dollar, so the bank doesn't foreclose and take everything. We'll take it off your hands. And bye-bye. Bye-bye. In the United States of America, that's what they're going to do. And C.O. Weaver, and I can literally read to you what she wrote if you want, saying, we are going to bring forth a communist revolution in which private property will now become a quote-unquote collective good. And that, quote, white property owners and white landlords in particular are going to have to learn that their property is no longer theirs. It belongs, quote-unquote, to the people, to the collective, to the state, i.e. to the city of New York. This woman and this mayor are freaking lunatics. And I'm telling you what's going to happen, because it's happened everywhere else. They are going to chase all the taxpayers out of that city. They're going to chase the landlords out of that city. They're going to take over. It's going to be a government takeover of all of these buildings. And you want to see how good the government can run housing? Look at public housing. Look at public housing in any city in the United States, which become slums. If you think living in a slum is your idea of a socialist utopia, I've got news for you. You're going to get a lot more of it. And so what they're going to do is they're going to immiserate and impoverish New York. They're going to turn it into East Germany before the Berlin Wall came down. You want to see the future? This, by the way, this is what Chavez and Maduro did in Venezuela. They just started taking over the buildings of landlords and seizing the property of homeowners and turned Venezuela into a giant slum, especially Caracas, and turned Venezuela from one of the wealthiest countries in South America to now one of the poorest in South America. And by the way, they did it in 10 years. So this is not even like in the old days where it takes 20, 30, 40 years. No. Now it happens much quicker. Mamdani vowed that you would, quote, feel the warmth of collectivism. This is now the, quote, unquote, warmth of collectivism. But he's not done. He's not done. His dream, he says, is not just to confiscate the buildings and homes of property owners and landlords and redistribute it to his friends or to the so-called tenants. No. He wants the whole freaking city. He wants the whole city. In that speech, he talked about, the buildings that were built in New York and the bridges and the libraries and the parks and the stadiums and blah, 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 blah. He says, now we're going to do the exact same thing. But it's not going to be on the old capitalist free market model that works so spectacularly well. No. Now it's going to be under this new city by city initiative. Sorry, block by block initiative. Block by block, as he said. It's going to be now the Mamdani socialist communist model, where NGOs and these community trust funds or the city, we just snatch up everything and we run everything. I want you to, Mike, do me a favor. I know we got to do the call log. Just very quickly. By the way, Mike, what was it? What game was it? Was it game 1 or game 2 when the New York Knicks played the Cavaliers that they were down 22 points? Okay, that was game 1. So in game 1, just so you understand, there's a line in this cut. In game 1 between the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers in their recent conference championship finals, the Knicks were down 22 points with about 6 minutes left. And they came back and won. It was a miracle comeback. So he's comparing himself to the New York Knicks and saying this miracle comeback, what we did in basketball, I'm going to do now for the entire city of New York. Roll cut 20A, Mike.
So often when confronted with intractable challenges, the world has looked to New York City to show the way. We have built great things before. Skyscrapers that rise into the clouds, grand bridges, libraries, and museums, the most ambitious public housing developments in the nation, a team that can come back from 22 points with a little more than 6 minutes left in the first game. Block by block, we will build once again. And we will prove that the belief we hold that every person deserves a dignified home is more than an ideal. It is a responsibility that government can and that government will fulfill.
Block by block. He sends his people out. They find violations. They hit you with hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. You can't pay them. They seize it, and they move on. Block by block by block. It's incremental communism. We're going to do it one block at a time. And he's basically saying, we're going to capture the whole city. And he's saying, nobody thought New York could win against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They did it. We're going to do it. He's now calling for a communist takeover of New York City. And I got to say this to all the dumb liberals in New York. We warned you. I warned you. This audience warned you. So many people warned you. Well, you voted for communism. Now you're going to get communism. And you're going to get it good, and you're going to get it hard. Okay, I'm a tad late. It should be at 8 o'clock, 8-ish. You know what that means? Kuhner's call log, caller of the week. Take it away, Mike.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Annie.
Not only are these illegals, but I will call them illegals because that is exactly what they are. They're not immigrants. I've been in supermarkets, and I was actually had an experience with one of those illegals, and the woman blocked the aisle with a carriage, and I said, excuse me. She totally ignored me. She just kept doing the thing, and I said, excuse me again, and she did nothing. I took the carriage, I moved it out of my way, and she looked at me, and she said, after me, you come. I looked at her, and I said, lady, this is my country. I'll wipe the floor up with you. That's how angry I was, Jeff. Because I'm to the point now where I hear people talk. And even people that in the beginning, oh, well, you know, they have a right to be here. Now they're looking at things differently and saying, well, why are they getting it? Well, this is what you voted for. This is what you have allowed. And when you do something wrong and you let that go and it just festers and festers and festers, Jeff, that's where we are right now. And we can talk, but what are we going to do about it, Jeff? How are we going to make it change? And you're right. I don't feel like my country's free. I feel like I'm in a box and I can't get out. I don't know where that door is.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Look, my advice to people in New York City, get out. While you still can, get out. Because there's a mob mentality now that is developing. And you're starting to see it on the streets. These Democratic Socialists of America, they are now going after landlords. They're going after property owners. They're actually targeting the homes and the buildings and the apartments that they want. They are Mamdani's shock troops. And you can see now, he's threatening business owners. You now have some of the leading captains of industry. They're already leaving. Big investors are fleeing. And don't wait. If you can sell your house, sell it. If you can sell your building, sell it. Because they're going to squeeze you and squeeze you until they seize it. That's their ultimate goal. They want to harass you, fine you, come after you. By the way, if you don't pay your rent in New York, Mamdani has now given an order to all the judges. You don't have a right to throw anybody out, evict anybody out of an apartment. So what are you seeing in New York now? Nobody's paying their rent. They're basically squatting in an apartment. So these poor landlords are saying, hey, look, I still got to pay the mortgage on this thing. I still got to make repairs. I still got to pay overhead. I still have expenses. But if nobody's paying rent, I'm losing money, and that's the point. So they're telling them, don't pay rent. They will never be evicted. And then call us for any complaint that you have, because then we're going to cite them violation after violation. We're going to fine them to the point that we're going to make it so expensive, so exorbitant, they're going to have no choice but to either give up or sell. And that's how we're just going to take it over block by block by block by block. Now, I'm telling you, this is not going to work. It never has. It never will. And all that talent, all that wealth, all that investment, all that capital, that brain drain, all of that, it's going to go. It's going to leave. And they're going to go to Texas or Florida or South Carolina. And so if you think New York City is bad now, they're just getting warmed up. You watch. Forget 10 years, 4 years of Zoran Mamdani. And I'm telling you, New York is finished. And in particular, he's telling the Muslims of New York, and in particular the areas where Muslims are predominant, he says, special shout out to all of you. You're going to get extra funding from me, and we're going to do everything we can to chase these so-called, and I'm putting this in air quotes, wealthy landowners out of your neighborhood, out of your area. In other words, we're going to make sure that you own everything, or you take over and seize everything in your area or in your neighborhood. If no one else has the guts to say it, I'm going to say it. This is ethnic cleansing under the guise of land seizure and building confiscation. That's what this is. And so behind that little slimy smile of his and his little soft cliches and always with the hand touching his heart and, you know, I'm just an innocent guy, humble guy. I'm for the little guy. It's a massive power grab. And New York will never recover. 617-266-6868. Let me ask you this double-barreled question. I never thought I'd be asking this question in the United States of America, but alas, here we are. Do you support Mamdani's plan to seize and confiscate the buildings and apartments and homes of quote-unquote bad or quote-unquote negligent homeowners and then hand them over to left-wing non-governmental organizations or to the tenants themselves? That's number one. Number two, can the government run housing better than the private sector? Can they create more houses? Can they create cheaper, better quality housing? Is the future, the solution to our future of affordable housing, is it to build more low-income public housing? Or is it to eliminate red tape and incentivize business owners to build more homes and apartments? In other words, is it the time for the government to take control of housing? Or is it best left in the hands of private enterprise? 617-266-6868 is the number. 617-266-6868 is the number. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, CJ.
Jeff, this is the perfect move, brilliant move by any communist who want to take down the United States of America. What greater way is there is to bankrupt a country.
CJ, are you talking away from your phone because we're having a hard time hearing you? You sound like very muffled.
How about now?
You sound better. Go ahead, CJ.
What better way for a communist to take down the United States of America or a great city like New York City than to do what Mamdani is doing? They tried to take down the Twin Towers. They did not do it. And I, like many, stood up and said, we will never forget. However, we have forgotten to a point where we have allowed communism to grow in our country. He knows exactly what he's doing. Whether it's with the real estate or with the grocery stores, his intention is no competition and to bankrupt the city. You know, as you said, who comes up with the code violations? What are the violations? People who have lived in Boston, for instance, or in Massachusetts, know that during the 1970s and 1980s, when there was rent control in our state, landlords, and I'm not talking about landlords that own hundreds and hundreds of units. I'm talking about landlords that own single, 2, and 3 family homes who are unable to repair their homes because of rent control that has been put in place. And the intention right here now in Massachusetts is on the ballot. And it is quite clear what they intend to do. They intend to do the same thing that Mandami has done. They want to push out people, get them out of the city, get them out of the state. But there is one problem for the people who have to remain here. Once your greatest tax base is removed, which are property taxes and business taxes, who pays the taxes? Who pays the cops? Who pays the firemen? Who pays the garbage collector? New York already knows that. They went through a garbage strike years ago where the garbage was up to the second floor. These are moves that we have allowed to happen in our country. We have allowed our country to fall into the hands of communists like Bernie Sanders, Liz Warren, and it's happening right here in the city of Boston. And people need to be aware of what's happening. They need to be aware that they are taking away your cities, your state, and your country. And they will continue to do that because their main objective is, and always has been, is to tear down the structure, the fabric, the financial stability of our country. And they will continue to do it unless we resist. And, Jeff, this is on the ballot here in Massachusetts. That's what they, whether it be by adverse possession or any other means of confiscating property, they will do it. What was the statement that our present Governor Maureen Healey made about the illegals when she was illegally housing them at Logan International Airport? Wasn't it if you have a room in your house, take these people in? It was everything short of legislation in this state. And that's what this is coming to, but it just boils down to the same old fact in what causes this to happen.
Oh, you nailed it. CJ, you hit the nail right on the head. Look, ultimately, Mamdani he's got an army of illegals. Many of them are Muslims. Let's all be frank, okay? Let's put our cards on the table, as the Germans would say. And he wants to give them free homes or free apartments. That's what this is all about. So he's seizing property to give to his political friends and his political allies. Well, who are his political friends and political allies? Many of them are illegals who voted for him. Many of them are these radical Muslim activists who helped put him over the top. And, of course, his Democratic Socialists of America, which is Bernie Sanders and AOC and the very radical far left. So that's what this is going to be. They are going to plunder these homes, plunder these apartments, shut them down, seize them, confiscate them, and then hand them over to illegals. And once they finish with these apartment buildings and these rental properties, they're going to go for straight homeowners. And you nailed it. What's a code violation? See, that's the game they're going to play. Now, look, here in Massachusetts, it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. You got homes that are 20, 30, 40, 50. Here, there's a home on our street. I mean, it's a nice home. Please don't take this the wrong way. But it's 100 years old. A lot of homes are older. You send a C.O. Weaver, the one that's running Mamdani's office for tenants, who says we're there to seize private property and we're going to use the regulatory code to take it away from homeowners. You send her to that home as an example. That home is gone. You're going to have to pay $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in fines. She's going to find everything possible wrong with that home. By the way, there's nothing wrong with the home. It's a very nice home, clean, well taken care of. It doesn't matter. They're going to find violation after violation after violation because they want you out. So, and by the way, this is property, this is theft. What Mamdani is now proposing, in fact doing, it's legalized theft. That's all it is. It's private property theft and seizure. It's confiscation like you saw under every communist regime. Kathy Hochul is silent. The City Council of New York City is backing him. The New York Times is backing him. The entire Democratic Party is backing him. And CJ, you're very wise, because it's coming to Massachusetts and to other states. But it's coming to Boston and it's coming to Mass. That you can take to the bank. 617-266-6868 is the number. Rob in Dedham. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Jeff.
Rob, how are you, my friend?
Fantastic. I am the only one that can stop Wu and Healy. I'm on the ballot in the 8th Congressional District, so all you people in the 8th Congressional District, both City Hall and the State House are in my district, and join the Burke Brigade at burkeforcongress.us. Jeff, going back to Biden real quick, 88, he had his aneurysm, okay? At the time, they did an ACA. My buddy of mine, Dr. Pat Madden, neurologist, told me what the deal was, okay? So what they did, they operated right between his eyes and went all the way back to the middle of his skull. So he was screwed up then. But I am the only one, just so you know, Jeff, I'm taking on the Bolsheviks. Dr. Zhivago, Lynch can't win it because he endorsed Biden, and the guy to the left of him that's running against him is the Modami of Massachusetts. Jeff, I am willing to put it all on the line to save our country and save the republic. I'm not waiting around for anybody talking about it. So if you want to take action, I need one volunteer from each town in the district, and we can win. We're going to go after voter integrity. We're going to kick all the illegals out of this country. And like I said, Jeff, it will probably cost me dearly for this, but I don't care. I love my country, and I'm not going anywhere.
Rob, did you, and amen, brother, I just want to say that, amen. Rob, did you ever think, I mean, I know now nothing shocks us anymore, but say 10, 20, 30 years ago, did you ever think that we would have Dr. Zhivago in America? And of all places, the financial capital of the United States? You know, Wall Street is in New York City, for God's sake. That you would have Dr. Zhivago in New York City? Did you ever think that would happen in America ever, Rob?
Laura's song on, okay? Dr. Zhivago, I remember seeing that Omar Sharif and Rod Steiger and Julie Christie. It was one of the greatest movies of the 1914 Bolshevik Revolution, not the Russian one. So, yeah, Jeff, I'm on the offense here, and I want to talk to you about a lot of the people are wringing their hands. No, I'm going to blame the Democrats, Steve Lynch and all those guys. They allowed the Bolsheviks into their party for power. Now they're eating them alive. And you can see it in the city of Boston. I have 190,000 people in the district. I have Brockton and Quincy. I've already identified 190,000 people in the district that I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're voting. That's why I couldn't get over 30% in 22 and in 24. I had 30 more thousand votes. And by the way, the Republicans blanked me on 20,000 ballots. So I am a patriot before anything. I'm an American first. I'm the only Trump candidate in this race so far, and I did that in 22 and 24. I'm not stopping. We're going with Trump. When Trump supports you, you win. When you try to coddle to be like a whatever they are, you get destroyed. But hey, listen, they took the property away from us in my hometown of Milton, which the house was built in 1799. We lived there for 129 years, Jeff, and I still have the same phone number since 1914. I'm from here, and I'm not going anyplace. They took it by eminent domain, and Lynch is doing that over the Norwood Hospital because of Stewart. They're trying to steal the land via eminent domain with their collaborators in the State House, the senators. So I'm not surprised at all at this, Jeff. My mother was a historian during in the town of Milton. We know all about the Bolsheviks over there, and they're all over the place. And you can't run from them, folks. You may go to some other town or other state, but they're going to try to come after you there.
So come after you. Making a stand. Rob, you nailed it. Rob, keep up the good fight, my friend, and thank you again for calling. 617-266-6868. Vince in Long Island. Speaking of New York, thanks for holding, Vince, and welcome.
I'm calling you about the nightmare that is New York City. I personally had to rent an apartment out recently, about a year ago or so,
I didn't rent an apartment for about 20 years, so I was out of the loop. The incredible nightmare regulations they imposed are out of this world. For instance, you can't check their criminal background records. You have to use their welfare as income if they're not working. It used to be that they had to pay the broker when they rented a place. Now they pass that on to the landlord. So try getting a broker. No broker even wants to get involved with finding you a tenant. So basically you have to scramble for yourself. You have to go online or something like that. And then they bombard you with all these regulations and threats. Very enticing to get a new tenant and all that stuff. And I wanted to say that the insanity of the penalties that they have on these people with fines for illegalities. Years ago, during the Giuliani administration, there was a death because someone rented out a basement. So they cracked down on all the illegal apartments in New York City. And they were fining some people at illegal apartments up to $1,000 a day. And some of these old timers, they just ignored the fines and all that stuff because usually government things didn't amount to much. But they were cracking down seriously, $1,000 a day. This particular old timer, it was all over the news, got to $300,000 in fines. They finally basically took his house. After all these years, they took his house. So Giuliani had passed a law, I think, before he left, that there was a cap of $20,000 was the maximum amount of fines that they could rack up on you. Because these people go crazy with fines. But I'm sure all that's out the window, since Giuliani. I don't know what the hell is going on. And, I'm a small timer. I just have a 2-family house. So a lot of these things are under the radar for me. But I had to go to court and evict a tenant a while ago. And God forbid you have an illegal tenant, because a lot of people have 2-family houses. They finish out the basement. They get extra rent for all that stuff. And that's the way it used to be for a long time. People needed cheap apartments, cheaper than market rates, let's say. And now they're using those basement apartments as basically blackmail against you. There was a person that I know that went to court to try and get out an illegal tenant. The illegal tenant was given like 6 months to 8 months to stay there without paying rent because the landlord wasn't entitled to an illegal apartment's rent. Yet this guy was entitled to free rent. But the kicker is 2 out of the 4 judges, there's 4 judges in housing courts in Queens, 2 out of the 4 judges took the position that if you have a 2-family house and 1 apartment's illegal, even the legal people don't have to pay you any rent, and they can stay there free. What do you think of that?
So basically they're saying people can squat in your home. Right? Effectively, Vince. That's what they're saying. Whatever. Pay the first month's rent, right? Come in, you're a tenant, and now because you're given the status of, quote, tenant, then they can just stay there and not pay rent, and you can't evict them. So basically they have a right to squat in your home, correct?
Right. Not only that, but then they keep racking up violations on you. And you try and get to the violations and fix them, and they deny you access. So they can pile more and more violations on you. So you're getting squeezed by the court system that you're not fixing the violations, but you don't have access to the place because it's denied to you by the tenant. So basically, you got to really watch out what devil you let into your property, because you let in the wrong person, your house is gone. It's insanity, and they keep raising your taxes 6% a year, water bills 10% a year, and yet they limit these people are under rent control. They can only raise the rent 3% a year. Not only that, but now they have, once your lease expires, you can't automatically take back your property. This is part of the new regulations that Kathy Hochul passed. You have to have a valid reason to claim your own house back, and a valid reason is according to what they think is valid. The simple reason where, I need it for a family member and I want my apartment back, that's not good enough for them. That's the insanity we're in. And, I sold a house like 15 years ago. I did a thing called a 1031 exchange. I don't know if you know about it.
Yes,
yes. Exchange one. Yeah, okay, 1031 exchange. So I went out of there to Long Island. And 6 months later, I get a notice from the city of New York. You owe us this amount of money for selling your house. I guess they just don't know about the 1031 exchanges. So you have to send them a letter back and explain to them what the federal law is. Because they're wherever they can look for money, they're up your butt. But it's insane, completely insane. I mean, and they want public housing. Look at the wonderful projects, Cabrini Green in Chicago. See how wonderful those projects are, public housing.
Oh, they're a nightmare. They're a disaster. Vince, if you don't mind, I want you to hang on because I'm up against it and I don't want to rush it. But this is what I want to ask you. What is Mamdani's ultimate goal? And when he says he wants to get rid of the bad landlords, who does he really mean when he says, quote unquote, bad landlords? So we're going to go back to Vince. He's, had a house in Queens, absolute nightmare. Renting is a nightmare. They're trying to chase landlords out. Okay, Zoran Mamdani, the socialist mayor of New York, really the communist mayor of New York, has now crossed the Rubicon. They are now implementing an initiative, they're calling it block by block, in which they will be seizing buildings, apartment buildings, homes, if there's a rental unit or two in it, and they will start seizing them if they believe there is a bad landlord, quote unquote, or if there's any kind of quote unquote negligence. And of course, Mamdani and his fanatical director of the New York Housing Authority of Tenants, C.O. Weaver, an avowed Marxist, a champagne socialist, as they call them. She comes from a very wealthy family, but anyway, she hates wealth, hates what she calls greedy landlords, and they are now saying they want to seize these homes or these buildings, either give them to nonprofits, many of whom are funded by communist China, or to give them to the tenants themselves. It is classic communist confiscation and seizure of property and land, and redistribute to their friends and political allies. My question to you, do you support the seizure and confiscation of private property? Democrats increasingly say yes. I say this is the road to totalitarianism, communism, and misery, disaster. What say you? Let's go right back to Vince in Long Island. Vince, you were describing the nightmare that it is now to be a landowner, even if you know one or two rental apartments, and they're on you, and they basically want to force you to give up your home or give up your rental unit, and they favor the tenant over the landlord to the point now they can basically squat in your property with impunity. What is Mamdani's ultimate goal? Why is he pushing this radical communist-style confiscation plan? What do you think he ultimately wants? Not Jeff and Quincy. Mike, Vince in Long Island.
Yes, hi.
Go ahead, Vince.
I think he wants to enrich his friends, basically take over these large developments and reassign them to his friends so they can make more government program money out of it. Essentially, these large developments are built by developers who start one corporation for developing the place. With, of course, they have guaranteed government loans because it's high risk or whatever. So they have government loans. They form another corporation that builds it. They take the profit. That corporation that has a profit is out of the business. Now they have the ongoing concern, which is the rental business. And that rental business is first of all, it's financed to the hilt with government money. And then they have consistent year after year losses, which they apply for more government assistance to help them bail them out so they stay solvent. Otherwise, they'll go bankrupt. So in effect, it is practically government run with some kind of private overseer. But these developers already took all their profits out of there. They're mortgaged to the hilt, and they lose money consistently every year, and the government keeps subsidizing them. So they have no problem walking away from that. And if they think that they can manage it better than private enterprise does, good luck, because they're a nightmare as it is, and it's impossible to manage these people. These tenants, people that don't own anything and have been given things for free, don't respect anything. I mean, I was in public accounting for a while, and I was auditing these buildings. It was incredible. These people are getting, like, say, $1,500 a month was their rent. Their portion was $50 a month. They wouldn't even pay the $50 a month. They had to send them legal threats and lawyer stuff and all kinds of letters. They had to spend so much money on lawyers to collect the $50 a month so that they had to insist that some rent had to be paid. That's how they don't give a damn about anything. The elevator costs were through the roof. I mean, these people they used to urinate down the elevator shafts. You know what that does to the electronics and all that stuff? They had constant elevator repairs. Something like on a building, something like $8,000 or $9,000 a month in elevator maintenance. That's completely wasted money. Eventually, it all flows down to the government. Or these people can walk away from everything, all these private developers, and leave it to be run by the nightmare that is the motor vehicle type people, and see how well that goes. I mean, we still have some 1 and 2 family houses that are holdouts, and these idiots, though, they still keep voting for liberal Democrats. I don't know why they do that, because they're coming for them. I mean, I had some work that was done on one of my houses. I still have one house in Queens. I used to have 2. Got the hell out of there with one of them. I was doing some work in the basement, and you know, these, I guess they're immigrants. He comes there and he says, you can get a lot of rent for this basement. I said, I don't want to hear about that. I've gone through that road. You have no idea what getting a person illegal into your house means. Because these people, by the way, they do it. They come in and they work together, but they rent amongst themselves. They're outside of the system. They don't go to court. Someone doesn't pay them. They go there with a knife and threaten them to leave. It's their culture. So that's what's going on. Hopefully Blakeman is going to win soon in November, and we'll remove Mandami. And that's basically what we can hope for.
Fingers crossed. Vince, thank you. That was a really great call. Thank you so much for that call. Now, look, there's another reason. Vince is dead on. There's another reason why they're doing this. Neville Singham, he's very powerful. He's a big billionaire based in China. He's an American, but he's living in China. He is very closely tied to the Chinese Communist Party. He is funding the Democratic Socialists of America. In fact, many of the anti-ICE activists, it's money coming in from Neville Roy Singham and his people. He is very closely allied with Mamdani. They are tied at the hip. Singham is one of Mamdani's biggest donors and biggest backers. And what Singham has now told Mamdani is, you want a permanent, radical, militant left in the United States? Here's how you do it. You seize hundreds of billions of dollars worth of property in New York City. All of these apartment buildings, all of these rental properties or homes with rental units, okay, all of these buildings, the real estate alone is a gold mine. And they go just seize it, take it away from the owners, by hook or by crook. And then you have the government seize it, or your nonprofits, who are Singham's nonprofits, we take it over. And that means we're going to have hundreds of billions of dollars of assets that now we, the radical, militant, pro-China left, we will control. And we can fund any candidate, any cause, any protest, any demonstration, any riot, anything we want. It's like an unlimited war chest. So it's not just, yes, it's part of a communist takeover, no question. Yes, it's clearly anti-white. If you want, I can quote to you chapter and verse what both Mamdani and his tenant director, C.O. Weaver, have said. Their goal, they've stated it. We want white property owners out. Out. Period. Out. That's how you crush, quote-unquote, white supremacy, by taking the property of white, so-called white supremacists. So it's all of that. It's religious cleansing, because Mamdani wants to Islamicize New York City. It's ethnic cleansing, because he wants to push white people out. But ultimately, it's also about building a massive war chest, a hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of a slush fund for the militant Marxist left tied to communist China, in order for them to continue to fund, you name it, the Democratic Party, every candidate under the sun that they want to support, any cause, any protest. That's why they're doing this. And if it means wrecking New York, destroying it as a place of business, immiserating it, impoverishing it, ruining it, hey, that's politics. Because ultimately, it's about power. Jeff in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call, and good to speak to you again.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jeff.
let me get this straight. So what you're saying is that people who have no Kings rallies are going to throw people that own property out of their property and fill it up with...
Touche. Jeff, let me ask you this. Do you think people, just because they voted for Mamdani, and that's essentially what Mamdani's arguing, have a right to, say, an apartment in your home? Or free housing? Or a free apartment paid for by taxpayers like you and me? Do they have a right to free housing or free apartments? What say you?
I would say absolutely not. Nobody has a right to free anything, and it's time we end the nonsense of free everything. We're at the part of socialism where we're out of other people's money, and that's why all these scam fees and these scam, property tax increases and all this nonsense that's going on. We've run to the point where we're out of other people's money, and if people don't learn to become self-sufficient, I'm just going to sit back and watch it. It's going to be quite entertaining when this whole thing falls apart.
Jeff, I'm not saying this to stroke your ego. You've been calling this show now for many, many years. Look, you're obviously a very intelligent, very smart caller. You're very perceptive, very insightful. So I've got to ask you this. As a person who understands politics, both national and, of course, Massachusetts politics, are we going to see Mamdani's communist-style housing policies? Is it coming to Boston, and is it coming to Massachusetts? Are we going to be Mamdani soon?
Yeah, going to be Mamdani soon if people in Massachusetts don't wake up. And the sad fact is, and it's I don't know, it's pretty scary when you think about it, but I think people are getting to the point where they've had enough, and these Democrats can't run this country with 5 or 6 states. So it really doesn't matter at this point. The wind's at our back, not theirs. And these people freaking out about the midterms, I'm not saying we don't have anything to worry about, because I want people to go out and vote, and we've been doing that in overwhelming numbers. Just look at Texas the other day. No one's bringing up the fact that we overwhelmingly outperformed in all of those states. People need to get off of their butts and get out and vote, and take 10 people with you to the polls. It's that simple. We need to wipe these people out and end this nonsense.
Jeff, you nailed it. Jeff, thank you so much for that call. Look, just if you want, I'll give it to you in one sentence. If the Democrats win in November, I'm telling you, you're going to see Mamdani for the whole country. What they're doing now in New York City, or here, what Mayor Wu, what Marxist Michelle Wu is doing in Boston, or what Brandon Johnson is doing in in Chicago, or what Karen Bass is doing in L.A., okay, or what Healy's doing for the state, or Pritzker, what he's doing to Illinois, or Newsom in California, they're going to do to the entire country. So, when you think, oh, it's just New York City. No. It's New York City today. It's you tomorrow. And it was CJ that made the point. They're going to push rent control on the ballot. And I'm telling you, I know in theory you go, well, yeah, my rent is too high. Sure, I'd like to have rent control. That's just the beginning. What happens when you have rent control? But just think about it. The property owner, property taxes go up 8%, 10%, 12%. Water goes up 8%, 10%, 12%. Electricity goes up 8%, 10%, the energy costs. I could go on and on. The landowner starts to lose money. But he can't raise the rent. So what do you think happens? Eventually the state's going to come in and seize it. And then you're looking at public housing, and you look at how public housing is run. You want to live in that? And then it creates a further effect. Because really, why are rents high? Because there's not enough supply. Here we have Dan O'Connell. Okay, he advertises on the show once in a while. I do interviews with Dan, and you can hear him. They're ads that we run during the break, and he always says this: why are prices in Massachusetts so high to buy a home? Because there's not enough supply. Critical shortage of supply. If you built many more homes, you would meet demand, prices would go down. The problem is you got so many people who want to buy a home or rent an apartment, but there's no supply. There's no homes. There's no apartments. Well, think about it. If you impose rent control, who would want to buy a home and rent out an apartment? Who would want to buy a building and say, whatever, 4 units or 6 units or 8 units or whatever? You got to be crazy to build an apartment building, own an apartment building, and then rent it out. Why? I got rent control. I'm going to lose my shirt. I'm going to lose money. I'm not going to make money. So why would somebody invest in building more supply and building more apartments and more homes? That's the problem. So if you want to destroy housing, you put in rent control. And then when you have rent control, guess what? Then there's no homes to rent or buildings or apartments to rent. And that makes the crisis even worse. And then eventually the government has to take it over, which makes it even worse. So you see, the left creates the problem, and then they offer themselves as the solution to the problem, which is even worse than the original problem. That's why rent control is the road to ruin. But they know what they're doing. If you want to have illegals in everyone's home, if you want to give free apartment buildings, i.e. taxpayer funded, to illegals, you start with rent control. And then from that point, you're New York City. It takes a few years for the damage to take place, but then after a while, who's going to want to buy a home? Nobody. Who's going to want to buy an apartment building? Nobody. Who's going to want to run one? Nobody. So then the state swoops in, scoops it up, seizes it, confiscates it, and then they do what they want with it. And we end up paying for it because it's now run by the government. 617-266-6868. Janet in North Carolina. Thanks for holding, Janet, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
I just want to thank you for 15 years of instruction from you about what Mr. Obama is doing, the anti-colonialist hater that he is. I believe that he spent every waking moment of 8 years and now 12 years or more of our taxpayers' money figuring out how to destroy. I believe it's so much easier to destroy than it is to build, and he's done quite a job. But not only has he destroyed the United States, we can see it in every single venue, single facet of our government. But we can also see that he has fought the aeons-old Arab war between the Sunnis and the Shiites. And the Shiites are the people that you spoke of, all of the countries, the 4 countries that are spokesmen for Iran. And that's really all I want to say, but I want to say thank you, Jeff, for giving me this.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. Thank you. No, look, Janet, I want to get to something that you said at the beginning. Everything you said is completely true. But when you said it's much easier to destroy than to build, and that is such a profound truth. And I'll just give you an example, Janet. If I said to you, Janet, it's imperative, please, you have to make a vase. And I want it to be a very beautiful vase. I want it ornate. I want it beautifully decorated. I want you to use the finest material. I want it to really sparkle. So when you come into a home and someone sees that vase, everyone's going to say, wow. And it really beautifies the house. Okay? It's a work of art. Okay? It's a work of beauty. And if I said to you, make it, Janet, how long do you think it would take you to make something like that? Ballpark.
A year.
Minimum. Right? Minimum. And
Yes.
I'm talking 8 hours a day, concentrating, working. I mean, you're going to put everything you have into it. Okay? In some cases, years. Okay? If you're really good, you're right, a year. In other cases, years. It takes 1 second to smash it. And any mindless thug can just come in, break into your home, grab it, take it, and smash it. That's it. That's it. It's all on the floor. You can never put it back together again. You can't, you break the vase, that's it. It's broken. You can't put it back together again. You can't glue it back. You can't stitch it back. It's done. That's what the left does. That's what the left does. And everywhere they go, they destroy. And it's the easiest thing in the world. What is very hard is to build. And so, I'm going to tell a story. It's from the New York Post. It is a heartbreaking story about a man who was a worker, had 3 children. He's of Italian, Irish, German descent. His last name is Diana. I believe his first name is Tom, but don't quote me on that. And 4th generation New Yorker. 4 generations his family's been in New York. And he was an ordinary worker. And he said, I love to work. I love my job. But I'd like to be a little bit more independent. I really want to make something a little bit more for me and my family. And so with his hands, he saved a lot of money. And he helped build a small rental unit property. 8 hours a day, sometimes even 13, 14 hours. He worked around the clock, broke his back, missed dinners. He would just microwave his food and keep working. And he got I think it's 2 or 3 rental units. Mamdani now is going to shut it down. They're going in, they're nitpicking on all kinds of violations, what Vince said, and they've now charging him over $300,000 in fines. He's got a tenant that hasn't paid rent in over a year, a deadbeat, a squatter. And the left-wing judges refuse to have him evict this people who haven't paid this tenant, this squatter, in over a year out. So he's got no rent coming in. He's got $300 worth of fines. All of his savings are gone. The years of hard work, sweat, and labor. It's a nice building. It was like a vase, his vase. A little something for him and his 3 children. And now they're going to confiscate it. In other words, they're going to take it and they're going to smash it. That's communism. Okay, this is a really good email that I got from Robert in Northport, Florida. By the way, you can email the Kuhner Man, Jeffrey Kuhner, Jeffrey, Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER, at iHeartMedia.com. Jeffrey Kuhner at iHeartMedia.com. And yes, I do read every single email. I may not have time to respond because of the volume of emails that I get, but the Kuhner Man, I promise you, reads every single one. And I think this is absolutely brilliant. Jeff, a socialist is a communist who does not yet have control of the military and the police. Bingo. Oh, bingo. Robert, you're a genius. I'm telling you, you're a genius. Okay? IQ minimum 140. Minimum. Let me repeat this, because no truer words have ever been spoken. A socialist is a communist who does not yet have control of the military and the police. That's Mamdani, that's Bernie, that's AOC, that's Healy, that's Michelle Wu, that's Obama, that's you name it, Kamala Harris, that's Hillary. Just go right down the list. You give them control of the military and the police, and suddenly you have one-party rule, and everybody, opponents, dissidents, you end up in jail. You go from socialism to communism like this, snap of a finger. And that's ultimately what Mamdani is now playing at. 617-266-6868. This is from 781. You can text the Kuhnerman 70470. Jeff, a major reason why rents are so high in Massachusetts, it's because of all of the illegal aliens that Healy has allowed to pour in and then subsidizes them with our money, $30,000, to get a home or an apartment. You deport the illegals, and the cost of rent and housing will drop like a stone. Bingo. So we don't need rent control. We need illegal alien control. And you'll see apartments will become much more affordable. Homes will become much more affordable. Frankly, everything will become much more affordable. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Anthony in Michigan. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Mr. Kuhner, a blessing as always. Hey, you know this big flappadoodle that they want to free Cuba? No. We need to split it in half at East and West. And we get Don Jr. to run the free side, and we move Donnie, Bernie, AOC on the communist side, so we can really see how this works.
Anthony, what do you make now it's unbelievable in New York City, the financial center of America? Mamdani, the duly elected mayor, is now pushing for the outright seizure and confiscation of private property, of homes, of buildings, of apartments, and he wants to give it all away to either nonprofits connected to him, these far-left nonprofits, or to the actual tenants. It's Dr. Zhivago, American style. What say you, Anthony?
Or like Tony Soprano, for crying out loud. You know, I saw this coming, Jeff. There was a blurb a while back on X about if you go to sell your property and leave, you're captive because they're going to do right of first refusal. And then you got like 6 months and have to review it, and these NGOs and these public outreach organizations can buy it off you. You're going to get the money you want, or are they going to stick it to you? No. This is beyond reproach. And you know, in terms of the financial capital of the world, you know there's a Texas Stock Exchange now that's a NASDAQ down in San Antonio?
I didn't know that. Really?
Up in the people on the New York Stock Exchange at one point to say, we've had enough, and they leave. Texas will open them with welcome arms, and so will DeSantis. You know, it's almost over, Jeff. And I got to tell you, who are they really going after here?
I mean, I would assume white property owners, but go ahead.
Trump's property, Jeff. Trump's.
Ah, interesting. So you're saying one of the reasons they're doing this is part of the end game is when they start seizing property, then they can turn around and say Trump Tower is ours, correct?
Of course. I mean, they tried to get him with that lunatic on the sexual harassment. How many times did they sue him and try to throw him in jail and make him a felon in New York? This has got Soros and Obama written all over it. Am I the only guy that sees this, or am I really off the deep end?
No, I think it's brilliant. I just didn't think about it. That's why, Anthony, again, to beat a dead horse, best audience in the business. The callers bring up points I didn't even think of, angles nobody even thought of. I think you're right. I think there's no question. I mean, I think they want to get, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of assets. There's no question. I think this is a communist power grab. I think there's no doubt about it, and a land grab. But I think you're right. Part of this is we're going to get the evil orange man. We'll get all of his properties in New York. We'll seize it, confiscate it. And I think for them, think about it, to give it to all of their leftist supporters so they can be in Trump Tower. Joining us now, as she always does at this time, she is the co-founder, CEO, and president of Kelly Financial Services. And yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, How are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. You know, a lot of people spend years preparing financially for retirement, but what many retirees discover is that happiness in retirement involves much more than just money. Once work ends, questions about purpose, routine, relationships, health, and how you actually want to spend your time become just as important, because retirement isn't only about leaving your career, it's about creating a life that still feels meaningful and rewarding every day. That's why this week we're talking about what truly contributes to long-term retirement happiness and fulfillment. And if you'd like a complimentary copy of our investor guide, 6 Secrets to a Happy Retirement, just give us a call or email us at kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, I'll continue this conversation tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or visit our website for the Radio Rewind. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
Thank you, Kelly. All the best to you and everyone at Kelly Financial. To get a free copy of that guide, and I urge all of you, if you can, do get it. Call now, 888-800-1881, 888-800-1881, or you can actually email Kelly herself personally, kelly@kellyfinancial.org. That's kelly@kellyfinancial.org. 9:34 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I deliberately waited to do this. It's going to be very short. I want to go back to the phone lines, but I didn't want to do this while the kids were in the car, or because it's a family show. Many parents drive their kids to school as they listen, and so I never want to make the parents uncomfortable or do a topic or say a certain word or a certain phrase that really children shouldn't hear. I try to do it as much as I can. And now we're talking about communism, and we're talking about things happening in America that we never dreamed possible. And it's not just Mamdani and communist seizure and confiscation of property. Remember, communism is not just a war on private property. It's a war on the nation state, on the family, and on God. And it's deliberate. And one of the ways they're trying to destroy the family and really war on the natural moral order, which comes from God, is the transgender movement. They don't want their people to believe anymore that there is something called biological reality, that there are two actual sexes, men and women, that they are profoundly unique and different, physically, mentally, psychologically, genetically, obviously, XX chromosomes, XY chromosomes. So listen now to this. I'm telling you, it's not a spoof, it's not a joke, it's not a gag. This is going to blow your mind. And this is what's coming from the likes of Mamdani, or in this case, Marxist Michelle Wu. And I want to give, by the way, a hat tip to Mass Daily News for breaking the story. On June 17th, there's going to be and this is what they're calling it, a trans period pride. It's going to be held at the Boston Public Library. And it is going to be co-sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu. And in particular, her Office of LGBTQIA2S+ Advancement, which, by the way, is almost got $1 million that we're funding. This is all our taxpayer money. We fund this. Okay, you live in Massachusetts, this is where part of your taxes go to. And what's the purpose of this trans period pride event at the Boston Public Library? It promises a consciousness-raising discussion, here it comes now, on trans menstruators. So they want to talk about trans people and their periods. If you want, I'll read to you straight from the brochure. Join Mass Now and the Mass Trans Political Coalition for a consciousness-raising discussion on menstrual equity and the experiences of trans menstruators. Basically, women who think they're men but haven't had a sex change operation, so they keep getting a monthly period. That's what this is. I'm not kidding. That's what this is about. And the oppression that they feel, and they want to end this stigma, and they want people to be aware that we need to be more sensitive and accommodating towards trans people who have a period every month. And the event, we're paying for all this. The event is free to attend. Please RSVP for directions to the meeting room. And check this out. Catered dinner and free period underwear provided to all attendees. So they're even going to give, underwears for a period. Free. There you go. And you can sit there and listen to how these trans people say they have periods, even though they think they're men or they claim they're men. But every month, it's that time of month again. I don't know whether to laugh, cry, pull my hair out. And, everyone's saying, Jeff, this is disgusting. Yes. And it's all done on our taxpayer dime. We're paying for this. This is the Democrats. This is the future they want. I don't know what else to say. It's sick. It's perverse. It's disgusting. And now they're doing it at a public library with the full blessing of the mayor. What, she's going to be there? What, she's going to show people how you put the underwear on? Really? When it gets soaked up with blood, what do? You take it out like this, and then you put on the next underwear or the next tampon or whatever? And I don't know, do trans people do it differently than ordinary women? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be gross, but and we're paying for this. And, you got crime out of control in Boston, homelessness out of control, you got drug addicts everywhere, you've got illegal aliens, you got property taxes through the roof, businesses fleeing, individuals, residents fleeing, taxpayers leaving, skilled workers leaving. You got problem upon problem upon problem upon problem. Let's be honest. The city's going right there, circling the drain. And this is what we're spending our money and our time on? What was once unthinkable now is everywhere. And fully backed by the Democrats, the radical Democrats. And they even want us to pay for it. Dave in Vermont, thanks for holding. Now that I've grossed all of you out, my apologies, but you need to know about it. It's your money. Dave in Vermont, thanks for holding and welcome.
Bonjour, Monsieur Kuhner. KUH, International, ER. Comment c'est-tu?
Je suis très bien. I'm very good. Bonjour, my friend. Dave, what do you make of this?
Jeff, I had a vision, and I don't know. I'm thinking about with these people going all electric, no fossil fuels and everything in there. The solar fields that they're building and everything are turning out to be junk. You're going to have a power overload on the grid. Power goes down.
617-266-6868. Mike, I can't believe. Did you just drop Dave? We were going to go back to Dave in Vermont. I believe he's French-Canadian originally. Our French-Canadian friend who lives in Vermont. and we were about to go to him. He was on the board, and suddenly he disappeared. So hopefully we'll reconnect with Dave. All right, let's go to Gino in Buffalo. Gino, my fellow paisan, how are you doing, my friend?
Very good, my patriot paisan, my great Goomba. Just, I have 3 quick points here, my friends. One is, where in the Constitution or Bill of Rights or any other great writings of our founding fathers does it say the rich have to pay more than the rest, i.e. the communists invented the IRS? Second, how is it, oh, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but show me one privately run institution or program that is run less efficiently, less corrupt, or a government program that's run less efficiently, less corrupt, and show better results than any privately run program.
Brilliant.
And last but not least, how is this even a debate about the government confiscating anything we legally own and have? That, to me, why the outrage is not more is beyond me. That shouldn't even be up for debate. The government has no right to anything I have, anything I own, and Lord forbid you come to my house and ask for it. Because the answer will be a staunch no.
No, you're dead on. Look, my fellow paisan, you're absolutely dead on. It would be the equivalent of, they're using rent as the camel's nose under the tent, okay, or the Trojan horse, okay, whatever analogy you want to use. It's them coming to your home and saying, Gino, as they're picking their nose, that roof of yours up there, I don't know, man, I see a tile. Is there a leak? No. I don't think so. I think there could be a leak. Let me take a look here. I'm looking at the grass. When was the last time you cut it? I don't know, a week ago, 10 days ago. I don't think you're maintaining your property very well there, Gino from Buffalo. You know what? We're gonna fine you. That's how they start. We're gonna hit you with $20,000 for the grass, and then $20,000 for the roof, and then $20,000 for whatever, your door. And that's what they're doing in New York. Till it gets to 100, 200, 300, 400, 500,000, and of course you can't pay it. And they go, well, Gino, hey, you can't pay it. We're going to take it over. And they seize your home. And you worked your whole life for this home. Because, you see, according to Mamdani and that crazy Marxist housing tenant director of his, C.O. Weaver, private property is theft. And private property should be seized. In other words, your home, Gino, you stole that home, according to these idiots. You're going to say, well, no, I worked my butt off and, I got a mortgage and I got a loan and I'm paying it off and I own it. And no. You oppressed somebody in your life because, you see, you're a capitalist pig. And now we're going to take, because it belongs to us, the government, and we're going to give it to illegals or to people who don't want to pay rent. They're welfare deadbeats who vote for them. And we're going to stick them in your house now. We own your house. You're lucky. I'm serious. You're lucky if you keep a room. That's, by the way, what the communists did in Eastern Europe. You're lucky if you get a room in your own house. But we're going to send in one family or two families or three families, and your home is no longer your home. And if you're complaining, blank you, and you give us the military and the police, we're going to jail you, your wife, and your kids. We're going to torture you, beat you, and kill you. And I'm telling you, Gino, that's communism. So where do they get the gall to think that they have a right to take over your property that you have worked for, you own, and you paid for? Gino, you tell me, my fellow paisan.
Well, they don't have that right, but like they said, I don't know who said it, but they said we are going to take over your country without firing a bullet. And we are at the precipice of that takeover. And Lord forbid, I'd like to see a government official step on my private property, because I will defend it with my blood, because that's my treasure. And nobody has a right to it. And I will die on my feet and never on my knees.
Amen. Gino, my fellow paisan, you and I We complete each other's sentences. Thank you so much for that call, Gino. All right, we got him back. All right, Dave in Vermont. Dave, please pick up where you left off. And I don't want to rush you, but we've got about a minute left. So please just let it rip.
I'm back, Jeff. What I'm thinking is this is a vision of mine. New York City has gone electricity free. People are freezing in their units. Elevators not working. They're going to start third world people burning trash in their apartments. New York City's going to burn. No fire department, no people to take care of it. Taxes are gone. And this is a vision that I've had. And I can see New York City in flames. And that's just a start.
Dave, are we looking now, seriously, at New York becoming Caracas? Basically like, Venezuela? Is that what we're staring at right now?
It's already started. But once we have an inflection of so many third world people, they don't even know how to use electric stoves, Jeff. They're burning houses down from using an electric stove. What happens if these big high-rise buildings in New York start and there's no fire department to put them out?
Dave, you're not 100, you're 1,000% correct. He's giving you a window into the future.